Hello, and welcome to today's story. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more. The story you're about to hear is based on accounts and rumors. Its full truth can't be confirmed. Now sit back, relax, and let's dive right in. Throwaway, because I don't want this tied to my normal account. I'm not here for advice. I just need this somewhere outside my head so I can sleep again. We moved in for the quiet. That was the dream. Fences of wind and birdsong instead of neighbors slamming doors. Space to breathe that didn't cost 3 extra shifts a week. The house we found was an old 2-story with a sagging porch and a roof line like a tired eyebrow. It was too cheap. Everyone says that when something is too cheap, there's a reason, but the ad had the words, "We were starving for 4 bedrooms, detached, no immediate neighbors." In the pictures, it looked like an oil painting someone had set down in a field. The landlord, Ove, was the kind of man who looked carved from the wood he'd spent his life carrying. He walked us through with the keys jangling like a nervous tick. First floor, an entry with a crooked mirror, a living room with a wood stove and a soft dip in the floor where a couch had lived for years. A kitchen whose drawers rasped when you opened them. Everything smelled faintly of apple skins and dust. Upstairs, he slowed near the last door in the hallway. He didn't touch the knob. "Nothing wrong with this one," he said. "Never used. There's an old phone. Don't worry about it. It's always been like that." The way he said, "always," sat down and wouldn't stand up again. We laughed because what else do you do? A room with a phone sounded like a quirk, like discovering a dumbwaiter or a child's mural hidden under wallpaper. After he left and the echo of his car dissolved into the fields, we did our own tour, giddy and making stupid jokes about guest suites and home offices we couldn't afford to furnish. The door at the end of the hall opened into a smaller room with a slope to the ceiling and wallpaper that had once been small flowers and was now sun-bleached to the color of old teeth. Bare boards, no curtains, a window looking over the backyard pond. In the corner, on a little table with claw feet, sat a black rotary phone. Dust veiled the dial. The handset's cord looped to the base and then trailed into the wall where the line should have been, except the wire had been snipped clean at the baseboard. No jack, no plate, just a dead tail of cord disappearing into paint. We called it the phone room. That first week, Claire set a vase in there. The flowers wilted in 2 days and left a ring on the table like a burn. We stopped putting anything there. The room always felt a little colder, as if the rest of the house exhaled, and that room never did. The first time it rang, we were in bed. The sound was so out of time and place that my brain tried to fit it into something sensible. A neighbor's phone, a TV show, a truck reversing, but there was nothing out here to echo against, and the ring was crisp as ice. I sat up. Claire's breath snagged on the inhale. "That can't be ours," she whispered. And then it rang again. That same bright, dated tone you only hear in movies. The third ring was upstairs, exactly where I knew it would be. I didn't want to know, which is why I went. The hall felt longer in the dark, full of that special night gravity that makes you aware of your lungs. The phone room door stood open. The bell trilled from the little table, the handset jittering against its cradle like a thing trying to shake itself awake. I lifted it because that's what the sound asked. "Hello?" If there had been a person, a prank, a debt collector with the wrong number, I could have put the story away. It was static. Thick, weighty static with a texture to it like breathing inside a wool blanket. I held it until it died, and only the empty shell of the handset pressed against my ear. I stood there a moment longer, listening to how quiet the quiet was, then went back to bed with a lie ready that I didn't use. Claire rolled toward me. "Who was it?" "Dead line," I said, which wasn't wrong. The next night I told myself we'd imagined it. We ate late and washed dishes and tried to fill the rooms with normal sounds. A radio in the kitchen, a podcast, while we folded laundry. The house absorbed it all. When we turned the noise off, it felt like we'd never made any. Close to midnight, the ringing split the air again. The hairs on my forearms lifted as if electricity had run underneath the drywall. I went slower this time, not because I wanted to go slower, but because my feet had their own plan. The phone greeted me like I was late, and I picked up and said hello to no one and heard it. "Don't stay here tonight, please." It wasn't loud. The words sat under the static like a fish under a sheet of ice, there and not there, but it was my voice. Not, it sounded like me, or it had a familiar cadence. It was exactly how I sound when I've already lost an argument and I'm asking anyway. I stepped back, and the coiled cord tugged my wrist. The line swallowed itself. I stood by the window and looked out at the square backyard like daylight would come if I stared hard enough. The pond lay black and flat, reflecting one star. My mouth tasted metallic like I'd licked the battery in a smoke alarm. Claire met me in the hallway. "You keep leaving me down there alone," she said, half joking, half accusing. And then she saw my face and dropped the joke. What did it say? It was me. I clung to the useless parts. "You know how you hate the sound of your voice recorded?" It was exactly that. I heard my voice stumble into the sentence without the part that mattered. "What did you say to yourself?" "Don't stay here tonight." I tried to make it a funny story in the saying of it and failed. "Radio interference," Claire said, but she said it like someone reaching for a coat that slips off the hanger. "These old phones can pick up weird stuff. People used to hear CB radios in their toasters." "It's not even connected," I said, and we let the silence in cheerfully like a dog you don't really want to feed. The calls kept coming, always late. 3 rings, a pause, more until I picked up. Sometimes it was a smear of storm and signal. Sometimes words sifted up through it. "Don't go upstairs." "Leave before it's too late." "Don't let her go to the pond." That last one hooked behind my ribs. 2 nights before, I dreamed I was in that pond. The water had a skin on it like oil, and beneath the skin something patient and slow moved, and I moved with it because a current is also a kind of hand. I hadn't told Claire. It wasn't the kind of dream you tell. It felt like if I gave it to the air, it would like me too much and come back. A week in, I started saying hello in different ways, thinking maybe if the call was radio, different consonants would catch different signals. It didn't matter. Sometimes it was only static, sometimes it was me, and the static felt like a room full of people I couldn't see. I tried not answering, but the ring came anyway, regular and relentless. I moved the phone into the hallway, then to the living room, then back. Each time it rang from upstairs in the room as if I'd never moved it. The handset would sit silent where I'd left it, and from the open door of the phone room, the ringing poured out bright as ever from nothing I could point at. I put it on the floor and covered it with a towel, and it rang under the towel like a buried bird. Pranks need a prankster, so we did the obvious. We called the phone company and the landlord. The phone company lady sounded amused until she pulled up our address, and then she was very professional about telling us the line to our house had been disconnected since 2003. She offered to send a tech for a service call and then caught herself. Like the thought of anyone standing in that room made her mouth change shape. "There's nothing to service," she said, and I thought of the clean snip at the baseboard. Ove listened to the words, "The phone is ringing," and frowned like he had to force his face to do something. "Do you want me to take it away?" he asked. "Yes," Claire said immediately. "Please." He came the next day with a cloth shopping bag like he was here to harvest fruit. He wrapped the phone in newspaper like something fragile and put it in the bag. I asked, stupidly, where will you put it?" He thought about lying and then didn't. "Back in there," he said. "It goes there." We could have put our foot down, and maybe we should have, but it felt like arguing with tide maps. He reinstalled it, which meant placing it gently back on the table, like returning a cat to the room where the litter box lives. "If it rings," he said, eyes on the floor, "don't answer." I waited for the rest of the sentence. He didn't have one. We tried experiments because experiments disguise fear as curiosity. We set Claire's old baby monitor in the phone room with the transmitter pointed at the little table, the receiver down in our bedroom. We turned off our phones and the Wi-Fi. We shut the door. We put a piece of paper under the handset and wrote the date in the corner. We told ourselves we would be scientists and not let our faces show that we were scared of upstairs. That night, the monitor crackled like a campfire and then went quiet and then fed us our own pulse and soft little taps we pretended we didn't hear. It didn't ring at midnight. At 1:22, the receiver clicked on and we heard the unmistakable clatter of the handset lifting and the small intake of breath a person makes after they have decided to speak, but before they know what to say. We ran up together. The phone lay on the table, the mouthpiece facing the ceiling like a question. The paper under the receiver had a perfect black half moon where the weight had rested before it moved. The door was closed. We had closed it. I didn't remember it closing after us. Claire picked up the monitor's transmitter and shook it and said, "There's probably a delay," to the empty room. I picked up the phone. "Don't answer anymore," my voice said. "It hears you hearing it." I put the handset back as gently as if it were attached to my wrist. After that, we fought more, the kind of fights that start about spoons in the wrong drawer and end at 2 a.m. with both of you saying, "You're fine," louder and louder. Claire thought the calls were changing the way I looked at everything else. I accused her of not taking it seriously. We both said we should leave at least once and then didn't because leaving costs money and requires admitting that the cheap dream you let yourself have is rotting from the inside. The phone started knowing things about the day. The first time it happened, I answered and heard my own voice say yes to tea in exactly 30 seconds. I laughed despite myself. I put the handset to my shoulder and started down the stairs to tell Claire that the world had gone absurd. "Do you want tea?" she called from the kitchen before I reached the bottom. I stood there with the phone warm against my ear, counting the beats of my heart because that was all the counting I had. When I lifted the receiver back up, my voice was there still, tinny and close, like someone speaking through their hands. "I'm trying," it said. "Please listen." I stopped telling Claire the specifics. She could see enough on my face. The pawn dream came back and brought friends. I woke one morning with my pajama pants damp to the knees and mud under my toenails, and I would have sworn on anything you like that I hadn't left bed, except swearing loses power when the evidence is under your nails. Claire held my heel in her palm and tried to frame kindness around her eyes and failed. "You're sleepwalking," she said. "This is stress. We need to make it less scary. We're making it scary by letting it be a thing." We went out to the shed in daylight and found a coil of phone wire, stiff with age, and a box of outlet covers somebody had forgotten there decades ago. I took the handset off the cradle and spoke to nothing. "We're going to stop this." Then we taped the cradle switch down so the line couldn't lift. We taped the dial, we wrapped the whole body of the phone in towels and then duct tape like some earnest amateur exorcism. At midnight, it rang through the towels. There are different kinds of fear. There's the sudden spike fear when a car swerves into your lane. There's the slow leak fear when your paycheck won't stretch far enough. This was the sort that changes your relationship with doors. I found myself listening to the house talk, the contract and expand of old wood, the tiny voices of nails, the slow glug of pipes, and fitting meaning to noises that didn't want any. Claire needed one sane voice in the house and tried to be it. She called her sister and described it as weird interference. She Googled phantom phone ring. She bought a white noise machine and set it in the hall like a guard dog. The first night we used it, the phone rang and the machine hiccuped in the exact rhythm of the bell for 3 strikes and then resumed pretending to be rain. The night before the last night, the call didn't ring. It bled through the baby monitor instead, sudden and so loud it fuzzed the speaker. Don't go upstairs, don't go upstairs, don't. And then it cut off as if something put a hand over my mouth. I sat up in bed so fast the sheet strangled my ankles. I said, okay, we won't, out loud to the empty door, and Claire sat up too, all elbows in hair and sleep. Did it call? She asked, and the way she phrased it, it told me she had given up pretending it was a prank. We didn't go upstairs. We lay on our backs watching the bad geometry popcorn ceiling and counting until numbers stopped being numbers and became a way to use up time. At 2:41, steps moved across the ceiling above us. Not creaks, steps. Heel toe, a person learning the house between rooms they didn't belong to. They stopped over the hall, then resumed above the phone room, then paused again. The baby monitor clicked and whispered with nothing. Then from upstairs, the sound of the receiver returning to its cradle, a very small plastic kiss. The last day was a day lived politely around a bomb. We made breakfast carefully, quietly, as if noise had a jurisdiction we could choose to respect. Claire suggested we spend the night in a motel in town. I should have said yes immediately. Instead, I said we should do one more night so I could prove to myself it was a machine, yes, a machine, that I could catch. This is the part in horror stories where you yell at the screen, and you're right to, but there was also rent and pride and the feeling that I had to finish a conversation I hadn't started. At sunset, the pond looked like someone had skinned a mirror and laid it over a hole. The cattails moved as if there were a breath on them I couldn't feel on my own skin. The window in the phone room reflected me in the glass, superimposed on that slick black water. In the reflection, my mouth was open as if speaking. I went downstairs and told Claire we would leave in the morning. We ate dinner at the little table and said small things to each other. I washed the dishes, I dried. I put the knife in the wrong drawer, and she didn't correct me. We lay down early and didn't turn the lights off. The house felt like a person listening through the walls. At 11:59, the phone rang once. At midnight, it rang 3 times. The 4th ring cut itself short, caught by a hand I couldn't see. I told Claire I would let it go. We didn't move. At 12:20, the baby monitor went live on its own. It didn't crackle. It didn't hiss. It just opened like an eye and delivered my voice, close and clean. Get out! I'm already dead upstairs. The sentence was wrong when it came out of me. The first half was a shove. The second half was a fact, reported by someone who had figured out how to file it. Claire turned her head toward me with her mouth forming. What? And then the steps started again. Not above exactly, but kind of everywhere, the way thunder sometimes sounds like it's walking around your house looking for an entrance. I didn't think. I grabbed her wrist and dragged us out of bed. The steps crossed the length of the house and then came back and then set themselves toward the hall, toward that room like magnet finds north. Between one heartbeat and the next, I knew exactly where they would stop. At the little table with the claw feet, where the handset lay resting on plastic, where the cord had been cut and was somehow longer than the house. I don't remember putting on shoes. I do remember the way the front door stuck on humid days and how easily, blessedly, it opened for us then. We left with our car keys and the clothes we had on. I locked the door out of habit. Claire said, "Please drive." And I did, all the way into town to the motel with the half-dead neon sign, where the desk clerk didn't lift his eyes from his phone and slid a key toward us like a lifeline. We slept with shoes on, and the TV turned to some channel where people bought houses they couldn't afford, and pretended that listening to them want things was the same as safety. In the morning, we went back together because you have to, because the adult world is made of returning and completing, and because our things were still there like bait. The house looked the way houses look in morning light, bad and forgivable. Nothing was out of place. The phone room door was open. The phone sat where it always sat. The paper we'd left under the receiver weeks ago was still under it, marked with the little half moon. The baby monitor was dead. We moved through the rooms, putting important things into bags and less important things into boxes, and the rest into that category you pretend you'll come back for. We called Oveo and told him we were breaking the lease, that he could keep the deposit. He asked us not to leave the key under the mat. "Give it to me," he said. And when he came, he didn't step inside. He took the key and looked past me into the hall the way people look past a stranger on a train. Not at them, but at where they are. He said, "Did you answer it?" And I didn't answer that because it wasn't the question he wanted to ask. We live in a small, noisy apartment again, in the kind where you know the neighbor's ringtone, and when the person upstairs has started running again after an injury. It's not quiet, but the noises belong to people, and people, even loud ones, feel like proof of life. Sometimes very late, a sound will muscle its way through the air conditioner and the traffic and the radiator's clanks. A sound so thin it could be a trick of blood in my ear. It's the ring from that room, the color of that ring more than the sound, the memory of a note. I tell myself it's a memory, and then I remember the calls that knew what hadn't happened yet. I've thought too long about what "I'm already dead upstairs" meant. There are reasonable readings, and there are the kinds that grow teeth. Maybe it meant I die in that room if you don't listen. Maybe it meant something of me is up there now, unanswered. Maybe the phone wasn't a phone at all, but a way for the house to reach a version of me that had learned the map. Maybe the room doesn't call out so much as call back. The echo arrives before the shout if the hallway is long enough. We never went back for the last box. Inside it were dumb things. Winter scarves, a stack of old receipts, a photo album Claire's aunt had scanned for us, and we never looked at. Sometimes I imagine the box sitting in the phone room, where we didn't leave it, lid closed, dust gently glossing the cardboard, the phone on its little table resting like a sleeping animal. Sometimes in the dream, the phone rings and no one answers, and then my voice on the other end breathes in and says, "Whatever I've just said to Claire down the hall, in our loud, shabby apartment with all the stupid living noises, the ones you don't notice until you miss them, and I know the ring isn't coming from that house anymore, but from the part of me that never left it." If you're thinking, why not smash the phone? That question is a relief because it pretends to be an action that ends a thing. I should have. I don't know if it would have mattered. We taped it. It rang. We moved it. It rang where it wasn't. Ove took it away in a bag. It rang from the table anyway. I think if I had smashed the handset on the boards, the ring would have rung from the coil of the cord or from the mouth of the little hole where the wire used to be or from the air. Sometimes Claire catches me listening. She'll say, "Don't," and I won't know which part of me she's answering, the one remembering or the one about to go back up that hall. I say, "Okay," because that word is a rope between us. We don't tell many people because if you make the story a performance, it starts to sound like you want to believe it, and wanting is a friend to the wrong kinds of ghosts. I tell you because writing it down makes it look like something complete, a page you can turn and stop touching. If you ever find yourself in a too cheap house with a room that doesn't seem to belong to the rest, and in that room there's a phone that is and isn't, and a landlord says, "It's always been like that," try the simplest thing. Leave before you hear yourself ask you to. If you wait for the call, you might be answering from both ends of the line, and not every version of you will make it downstairs. Every once in a while, when I've just drifted off and the apartment is finally, impossibly still, a sound threads through that stillness with the patience of a fisherman. I'm learning to let it go to voicemail. I'm learning there are rooms you don't have to answer, and that some messages aren't for keeping. But if I ever break that promise to myself, if the thin, bright ring carries something more than sound, if it brings with it the breath and weight of dust and pond skin and the feeling of a hand on the back of the neck, I hope I remember what I told me. Get out. Don't stay tonight. And if I don't listen, if I go upstairs anyway and the steps move toward that door, I hope you read this and don't make my mistake of thinking a door is always a way out. Some of them are mouths. Some of them call you back after they've already taken what answers. Thanks for listening. I really enjoyed putting this story together for you. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and share it with someone who's into this kind of stuff. See you next time.